Well, afternoon. Welcome to the Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo live stream, where we will be bringing you the latest and greatest from the industry every week at 4 p.m. and have you on your way by 4:20. I'm Gretchen Gailey, the Chief Strategy Officer for CWCBExpo, and I'll be talking with industry experts, influencers, and a few cannabis OGs, all with a focus on the New York burgeoning cannabis market. This week, I have the pleasure of speaking to Jenny Argie, founder of Jenny's, also known as Jenny's Baked Goods, Jenny's Baked at Home. Which one are you going with?
Well, I think going forward, it's just Jenny's, but the company is Jenny's Baked at Home. And it was a play on words. It was a double entendre. So I never had baked goods, but I definitely had healthy edibles.
So for those of folks who might be hoping to get, an infused brownie or something from you, what can they expect from your business? What should people be looking for?
So going forward, I was 8 years in CBD, and recently in the last year was granted the adult use THC license in New York for processing, manufacturing, and distribution. I hope to come to market with a line of healthy edibles, sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, and not just sugar-free, but sugar-free that is good for diabetics, cancer patients. So the type of sugar substitutes, alternatives I use is definitely on the healthy front.
Do you think that is a space that desperately needs some sugar-free? Do you think edibles have kind of been neglectful in trying to offer healthy alternatives?
Yeah, I think for a myriad of reasons. I don't think it's just wanting to not, maybe we're all kind of weight conscious or health conscious or not wanting to eat sugar. But if you're sick in any form, if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, you can't eat sugar. If you have cancer, it fuels the cancer. So I think for many reasons, I think we get enough sugar in our diet. We don't need to be doing it when we're trying to mix it with such a great plant.
So now, just a little bit, not too long ago, late last year, you founded the New York Women's Cannabis Board. Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization and why you decided it was necessary?
Yeah, I think it's still a work in progress. So I reach out to everybody who's listening to this if they're interested in joining. We're looking and we're wanting to build a tribe out there of women in cannabis in New York that are both professional and maybe people that are just wanting to get into the industry and or don't even have a profession, but are interested in the plant and all it has to offer. But this license was granted to myself and 33 other processors overnight, and we were sort of thrown into the pit of finance, and it became very difficult to navigate with everything that has happened nationally with cannabis. And when New York announced the recreation in New York, I think a lot of outside states came in, and it was a very tough place to navigate. So I kind of leaned towards women and the women that I thought would support me and other women in New York and not cannibalize it. So that was my reasoning to do it, to create a support network, both that could help me navigate the finances, but also navigate the waters of New York without it being too tainted.
When you were going through that whole process, licensing, fundraising, did you feel that there were extra hurdles in front of you because you were a woman?
100%. There's right now, I think the stats I've looked at recently, 1% of CEO positions is held by women in cannabis right now. We're devalued 40 to 50% when we go to sell our companies or even be evaluated. So I think women have quite a hurdle ahead of them in this industry because, it's like so many industries that seem to be male dominant. If it's, agriculture or manufacturing, they seem to not think that women have the same sort of experience. I came 15 years. I designed and manufactured furniture, at factories in both Brooklyn and Asia. moved a lot of merchandise and had a lot of experience around that, but wasn't seen in that sort of light because it was sort of taken over with this bro mentality. And that bro mentality has sort of dictated the last, I think, 5 years, and is to me, it looks like it's getting worse. So yeah, I think it's a place for women now to step up and make sure that we don't fall in the shadows of these of what's going forward in the industry.
I recall years ago when this industry was getting started. I mean, there was at one point a stat going around that 40% of CEOs were women in this space. Why do you think it has drastically declined so much?
Well, I remember that 10 years ago when I started the company, it was all about women. Women were the founders of everything. They were, and what I look back on it, and I think what I have I've read a few articles around this very, very subject, is that women are risk takers. So we definitely we're more, mother figures. We're the nutritionalists. We're the risk takers. I think women came in and offered an alternative to pharmaceutical with cannabis and a very healthy approach. As soon as it monetized and it became more of, that bro-centric mentality of how high could you get, the health and wellness aspect of it sort of dissipated, and it was all about moving numbers and moving product. And I think women, didn't have maybe the bravado or the not that they don't have it. It's just that the women that were championing cannabis came from a different perspective. It wasn't about the monetization of it, the way it turned into it. So I think maybe they just said, hey, I'm out. This has always been a health and wellness approach for me.
How would you turn the tide? I mean, how do we get back to, I think this industry has strayed quite a bit from the health and wellness side, especially with more and more adult use licenses coming on board. We see states kind of just push their medical programs aside. How does a new state like New York, and everyone knows this, the New York medical market was never anything, to write home about. But how do they also incorporate women? They've put such an effort on social equity moving forward. How does a newer market like New York really try and hold on to the pieces of, having strong leaders like women in the space?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think New York, I know that there's lots of criticism about the rollout, and nothing's easy in the beginning, and it's going to take a lot to move these mountains. But not allowing the large operators from other states to come in quite yet, or maybe not allowing, but not encouraging them to enter the market yet with the 2-year conditional that we've been granted, allows the smaller farmers, allows the people, the processors, the sole entrepreneurs to champion their skills and their talents, whether that's an apple orchard or somebody like me who had cancer and, is going to live the rest of their life with cannabis and having a healthy alternative to an unhealthy edible. So I think New York continuing to champion the small business, the small growers, as long as they can, has been an advantage. So I'm hoping that we still get the resources and access to build the companies that we need to before we're faced with such larger challenges.
Now, speaking to the rollout, that has not gone as quickly as some would like, and I would say you're probably one of the folks who you might classify as kind of in the middle of the supply chain. How has that affected you all? I imagine you guys are ready to go and be out there, and the dispensaries just aren't there yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I have no criticism for anything that's happened. I understand that this happened overnight, and the amount of compliancy and regulations and moving parts is overwhelming. But we were told that, come January 1st, that there would be dispensaries. There was one dispensary, and that's fantastic that happened. But I think a lot of my competitors probably invested a lot of resources into a Q1 rollout or a Q2. So I'm very sympathetic to the supply chain, which are the cultivators, the processors, the manufacturers. We're sort of in a hurry up and wait kind of place, and that really hurts because you have to hold steady while you have no cash flow and you have overhead. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is just to try to stay alive until these dispensaries open and that we have a market to sell to and there's a cash flow situation happening, because right now the engine is seized.
No, I definitely hear you there. And you keep saying that, no one wants to come down on the OCM, and it takes time. And I think that folks often forget, when a state legalizes, from the moment of that legislation passing to an actual market getting up and running, it usually takes about 2 years, to get the regs in place to really kind of open the doors. So some could make the argument that New York has been moving a lot quicker than some have in the past. I know people would love to see the doors just fly open, and there'd be dispensaries everywhere. But that's just not how it works. So you're 100% right when you say, it takes time and people need to be a little more patient. How does that work for you all, though? I know you got to be patient, but what advice would you give to someone else in the supply chain, just holding out and trying to figure out, all right, where am I putting my cash? How am I supposed to be able to make this work? I mean, you've been in it in other industries. How do you make this work for cannabis?
Well, I mean, I don't know the listeners how much they know, but we don't have fair banking. We don't have access to loans, and if we do, it's private lenders, and they charge us, quote unquote, the marijuana tax, which is interest rates that are just obnoxious. And so taking loans out and waiting, it's a terrible game to play. So that's one thing that can be done. The other thing is just running as lean as possible. And I think that's difficult because, for me, I'm a sole entrepreneur. I didn't take on really many investors. I had a small initiative to come to market. But if you kind of swung for the fences, you're desperate to get those dispensaries open because your overhead is just every month you're getting further in the hole. So we don't want that to happen to the supply chain. We want the supply chain to be solid, and I don't want any of my competitors to go down, because we all need to support each other, because this industry is going to be big, and we're New Yorkers, and we can do this together. So I think there's a couple organizations that get together and try to collaborate. So I think community, whether that's within your counties or within the whole cultivator community, you just need to stay community based to support each other. What can I do to help you? How can I speak to cultivators. Maybe I can't buy their whole crop, but maybe I could buy it over 5 months. So we could work on ways of working with each other to keep ourselves above water. It's probably the best.
And so would you say that when it comes, full circle back to your other answer about the New York Women's Cannabis Board, building that strong network, building the folks that you want to work with that will support you when things are a little tough and you're looking for a way to run lean?
Yeah, exactly. So, I set this board up to try for these women that were not in cannabis, but wanted to enter cannabis and could go out there and sort of be our ambassadors for cannabis. So let's say it's an industry like hospitality. Maybe they don't know all of the advantages of getting into cannabis and what the opportunities lie ahead of them when it becomes more legal, more opportunity to open up lounges and have access. So if I could go out there and kind of create these ambassadors for not just Jenny's, obviously, but for cannabis, then we can maybe have a little more fair playing field. I mean, that's my goal, is to create a fair playing field for us because we're not federally legal. So we're just sort of sitting ducks all the time.
What would you say is the biggest enemy of entrepreneurs in this space? Is it the illegality, or is it, finding the capital, not being, where's the money? I mean, is it truly that, there's just this huge stigma surrounding cannabis and we're never going to get ahead while the feds still keep it illegal? Or is it just big business does not want to play with us?
Well, it's in segments, right? So when cannabis became legal, it was medical, and that was vertical. And if you didn't have millions of dollars to set up that verticality, there was no way you were entering the market. And then states, Colorado, California, Oregon, what have you, started going recreational. That opened up different licensing. But these licenses, they're not, you can't bootstrap it as entrepreneur. And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And this isn't an industry that you can grow slow or bootstrap it. You can have a brand and you can ask a manufacturer or processor to manufacture that for you and you can put up. But if you are the factory or the grower, the amount of money that the initial capital is, it's a heavy lift. So I think going forward, I don't think it necessarily has to do with legality, but maybe it has to do with fractionating the supply chain so that people can enter. But right now it's so black and white with what we can and we can't do. And it doesn't mirror the other industries of production. So I think going forward, we're going to see a little bit of it separating out, and entrepreneurs can come in and they don't have to have such huge capital to enter this industry, and which is fantastic because that's when innovation happens, right? When it's people with creative and inspirational ideas that rock the ideas or the product that's on the shelf and say, hey, you can think of it differently. So I look forward to that. Because I think it's a little insular right now. But staying alive is, I don't know. I mean, it's really, I would imagine that everybody who's in this industry could commiserate with me. I mean, it's a lot of Hail Marys all the time.
Yeah. So and staying alive is so apropos for the New York market. Do you think there are any unique opportunities in the New York market that you might not get elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think New York is just the bedrock of innovative products and art and inspiration, and the energy here, is just fantastic. I think we're going to come out with so many different cool products that are going to hit the shelves, and different ways of lounges and promoting cannabis and elevating it and making it cool. So yeah, I don't know specifically what I have in mind, but I mean, if you think about all of our great restaurants and our chefs and, nightclubs and music, and I think the cabaret system, scene is going to come back on. I think it's just going to be really, next few years, it's going to shape beautifully.
Okay. Well, I see that we are coming up on 420. Do you have any parting thoughts you want to leave for your fellow female entrepreneurs, or basically anyone trying to stay alive in New York?
Well, I just, as always, if somebody else did it, you can do it. So, this industry, just get in and create your, I know there's a lot of tribes out there. Just create your tribe, reach out. A lot of women will talk. So just reach out and ask for advice and just stick to it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. I think there it is. There we go. We have a code that is flashing across the bottom of your screen, Jenny BG. With that code, you can get a free 3-day expo pass and 20% off the full conference pass. So please go ahead and put that in when you go to check out. And thank you again, Jenny. And thank you everyone for joining us on CWCB's live stream. And don't forget to tune in next week for our latest industry expert as we travel on our journey to Javits in June. Enjoy your 420.
Thank you, Gretchen.